Hi, this is Kirk Konecki, Superintendent of Indian Hill, and I am here with our guests today, Duncan Bennett and Sophia Heineken, for our fourth EduHERO podcast. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Nice to have you here today. So, Nirvana, what's your favorite song?
I haven't listened to a lot of their songs, but this is actually not my sweatshirt. It's my friend Alex's sweatshirt, and we switched sweatshirts for a day, and I never gave it back to her.
That's kind of a throwback to my generation. That's why I was wondering. And Duncan, of course, you're sporting your Bengals sweatshirt.
yeah.
Are you a big Bengals fan?
Who day?
How did you
Oh,
feel
God.
about that Who Day off last year when the Bengals made the Super Bowl?
Yeah, that was great. It was like my first year of being a football fan, and we made it all the way.
Same.
Pretty
But,
cool, huh?
yeah.
Yeah. So you two are here to share a little bit about your middle school experience, but really overall your school experience. One of the things that's really cool that you're working on right now is what's called a silent disco. So, Sophia, tell me a little bit about the concept and how you guys arrived at this idea of a silent disco.
So basically, we're having this all-inclusive event, and at the end of the week, it's over a week, and at the end of the week, we're having the silent disco, as you said. And basically, everyone has their own headphones and is listening to music, but they can control the volume if they want music at all. And it's basically just if you get overstimulated easily, it's an easier way to control like how stimulated you
Yeah.
are. And I was talking with the student council, and they've made 4 amazing playlists with all different types of music.
Yeah, which you can swap through. So
Yeah.
if like the top music,
It's getting a little old for
it's
you.
or if it's like really loud and something,
There's
or
a
like
variety.
lots
Yeah.
of like boom, boom, boom.
You can
Then
change
you
to,
can like
like,
change it
Christmas
to
music.
or classical music if you want to.
And Sophia, you mentioned inclusivity. So the method you chose, you guys kind of chose this on purpose, right? You're
Yeah.
saying you can kind of think about the volume and the noise and the selection of music. And what do you hope is going to come out?
I guess just for people to see that there is more than one way to do things, and that you can always adapt something to be more accessible for someone else.
Oh, I love that. More accessibility for anybody, right? And the fact that you care about that and you're planning that. So, Duncan, when you think about the difference between a typical school activity and this activity, what's going to set this apart at Indian Hill? Because I've never heard of anybody doing something like this before.
Well, with the disco, in middle school we usually don't have dances or something. So it's like a different way to do it where you don't feel like weird and kooky like dancing with your friends, and you can like enjoy it a different way with like different music, and you all like do what you want.
You're hoping people are going to take exception, right, to this format and feel more comfortable, right?
Yeah.
And that's a big thing in middle school, isn't it? Right? You want your peers, your friends to build up their confidence, their own image of themselves, and really,
Yeah.
you want people to be comfortable with lots of different kinds of people so
Yeah.
that they can have great
Yeah.
coping skills as they move on. Sophia, you've been traveling and competing in youth volleyball
I have.
competitively for a long time.
Yes.
What have you learned about that idea of working with different kinds of people, not only on your team, but just being around different people over time? Because you've done a lot of this.
Yeah. I think one thing I've definitely learned is that if you think you know, like, someone, I don't know how, like, to word it, but there's always going to be another type of person. Like, you can't categorize people in any type of way, because there's always something that's going to break them out of their category.
Yeah, set them apart.
Yeah, set them apart from the rest.
I like
And-
that idea of set them apart, right?
Yeah.
Because you're taking like a strengths-based approach, right? Every one of your teammates has something they can
Offer.
contribute,
They can bring,
and they all
yeah.
have their own unique background.
Yeah.
And what have you learned with this competition level? Because I know you take it pretty serious, and
I
then
do.
now it's transferring to the school. Like, what are your goals with volleyball? Because you've been involved in kind of specializing in this for a little while.
I guess my goals is just to get better every time, because I know that people will be like, oh, I'm really good at volleyball, or like, oh, she's really good at lacrosse, or oh, she's good at hockey, yada, yada, yada. You can always get better. So even taking like the little things and like perfecting every single like step, movement, arm swing, set, pass, every little thing, there's always something you can get better at.
So you're trying to take a real growth mindset over time, knowing that you're going to continue playing and
Yeah.
competing and hopefully developing to get to this point that you have set some goals for yourself, right?
Yeah, and like looking into like every single detail of everything is like something I also put into like school. Like in math, I always look at every detail, make sure I understand every little thing before moving on to the next concept.
So your personality, you like to kind of transfer those skills. That's
Yeah.
really great. And of course, the more you can do that across multiple activities, the better, right? Like
Yes.
Duncan, you've been involved in basketball. You're also involved in the musicals. You've got multiple talents. Like, what are your passions? Because I see you, participating in lots of things. Is it that you just like lots of things, or is it that you're finding that you have specific talents in certain areas that you really want to exploit?
I think it's both of those, but also like getting able to know people of like different like mindsets. Like with sports and stuff, they might be like trying to push hard and like having a different mindset than someone who's in a theater production.
And the theater productions obviously are pretty important to you, right? You've been involved a lot. Cinderella, going to be a huge production. What are your goals specifically for you, and like what are you looking forward to?
I don't know. That's like a tough question because
That's okay.
I don't have like certain goals. I kind of just want to try to achieve like to be at a higher point than
You were before.
yeah. I just want to come out of something feeling better than I did going into it.
So the reason I ask this is because a lot of people do not perform. They don't get on stage. They don't do drama. They don't do performance acting or singing. Can you kind of like give us a little peek behind the curtain, so to speak, of what is that like? Like, how do you get yourself ready mentally to do that? Because go out and present in front of a big crowd sometimes can be nerve-wracking to other people to even conceive in their minds.
Yeah.
How do you approach what you do?
I mean, I'm definitely super nervous like at the beginning, but I feel like with auditions, I'm like so scared to go into there because I've only had like a week or so to practice. But when it comes to like the performance, I've worked on it for like multiple months. I've practiced at home and I make sure I always feel ready.
And your teachers obviously have a big role in this. Your coaches have a big role in helping you to feel a little more confident. How has that helped you, and who has helped you specifically, Duncan, in terms of this over time?
I'd say like my brother. Well, Conrad, but he's like a big theater person, and he has tons of experience. So it's always helpful for him to like guide me through practice and making sure I know what to do.
That's great, having a high school sibling who's also a role model. I love hearing that. And of course, Conrad's been involved in a lot of our productions here as a star. And so you take some modeling from your brother. That's awesome. Is there a teacher that you would speak to, I guess, in middle school or elementary school that has helped you build some of this resilience and confidence, even though you might be nervous sometimes? Is there someone who you've really enjoyed in terms of your music classes or your art classes that you would point to as a role model?
Probably Mrs. Kester. She's just been like so kind and like she's accepted like me for who I am and like that I'm gonna make mistakes but that we can work through it.
Oh,
She's
that's
like a
great.
mama bear, I feel like.
Is
She
she?
always like takes in someone as their own and like knows how to take care of someone, I guess.
Well, that's great to hear. We want our teachers, right, to take care of people. I think Miss Kester does that for a lot of people. Sophia, in terms of the theater side and the performance side, you've done some of this too, right?
Yeah.
Who has helped build you up, and who's helped shape your kind of vision of what you want to do with performance art?
I think Miss Kim, who is like the CAPA director, who I'm pretty sure she does some things with the school, and
Yeah.
then also Miss Kester and Mrs. Thomas. They've just like been really helpful at seeing through the like what you want to do, I guess I could say. They like
You mean like finding the right role,
yeah,
or finding the
like
right
finding
voice?
finding your own voice, and then when you're telling them like your vision for what you're gonna do, they like help you illustrate the vision and help you bring it further.
That's great to hear. I love hearing that, and you getting to interact with those teachers outside of the classroom or those coaches outside of the classroom, right, is kind of a big deal. there's a little bit of a buzz right now, obviously, because we're building a brand
Yeah.
new state-of-the-art middle school, and you're not in it yet, right? But, we've got these grades split up in the different areas, and I think there's been a lot of unity amongst the specific grade levels because everybody's had to adapt. Beyond the construction, what are some of the biggest challenges that middle school students face today in middle school that maybe adults or teachers or leaders listening might not even know? Like, when you think about the middle school experience from your perspective, what are some challenges that you face?
Speaking out, I would say.
When you say speaking out, do you mean like the challenge for you to speak up and speak out, or people speaking out about
Well,
you?
I think that there's always like this internal fear that when you say something, it's going to be taken the wrong way, so you just don't say it
and
at
there
all.
might be like backlash.
Okay, so
So
some
yeah,
of it's
or like the backlash of saying something, or like even if a teacher's doing something and you don't quite think it makes sense, and you
Yeah.
want to ask that, you think it's like an embarrassing thing to like raise your hand and be like, I don't get it.
So there's a dynamic about your own confidence to speak out when
Yeah.
you have an opinion or a viewpoint, and there's maybe a little tension of peer pressure about how people might perceive it, or even
Definitely.
the adult. Is that what you were thinking?
Like same thing with like the perception thing, like balancing like friend groups or stuff that you do. I've definitely had trouble with that with like my friends who are more like athletic and stuff versus like theater, because they're like so different. They're incredibly different. It's
Yeah, and having different experiences, right? The common sense viewpoint is that's a good thing, but the middle school experience for you, the reality might be how people all interpret that. And as you're building these like groups of friends or colleagues, peers, that can be perceived in different ways. So what would be some advice that you would give to parents about how they should approach getting kids to look at this from like a proactive or positive standpoint, right? Like everybody has to go through what you're going through in middle
Yeah.
school.
Yeah.
How do you make the most of it? Like Duncan, when you hear that, what do you think?
I mean, you're definitely gonna always have to go through something in middle school, whether it's like friend groups or something like that. But you like shouldn't let it stop you from being friends with certain people if they think that it's kind of weird to do something. Like,
So play down the differences and maybe educate them about why you're doing what you're
yeah.
doing. What do you think?
I think, or is this for like the advice for parents?
Yeah, like if you're going to tell parents, hey, here's how to raise a middle school kid to be successful.
I would say go easy on them. I think a lot of parents don't know exactly like what's going on in their kids' minds, which makes that like the parents like try to be like super included with the kid, even like the kids like
Yeah,
just let me
and
have
it-
my space. I'll figure it out, and when I come, like when I need you, I'll come to you. But I think parents just try to like, not to say attack their kid, but like
Engulf.
yeah, like just like try to cover their kid with all their like, oh, you should do this. You shouldn't be friends with them. You shouldn't do this. It's like let
Yeah.
them guide their own way. If they need help, they'll come to you.
What's the best way for you? This would be a help, right, for
Yeah.
a parent. I'm hearing what you're saying. What's the best way for the adult to approach the middle school student to learn about how they feel without engulfing or hovering? Like, what do you want to be asked?
Like what's going on in your life? Is there anything I can help you with? Instead of just like if someone's saying what's going on and they like bring up a problem, not just saying we should do this to fix it. You should ask them
Yeah.
like, how do you want to fix it? What do you think the best approach would be
Give
to
you a
that?
chance to come up
Yeah.
with the solutions
Yeah.
or possible solutions.
Yeah, and then if they come up with a possible solution and you see maybe a little bit of an easier way to do that, say it as a suggestion, but not as a you should do this.
You agree with that?
Yeah, definitely.
It's more of a you could, not a you should.
Yeah, because you definitely don't want your like parents to like, oh,
Helicopter.
you should definitely do this, not that. Like, you want to feel like you have power in
making
like
your own decisions.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's what I was wanting to touch on a little bit. And Duncan, you just said that so well. You want to have power to plan and make decisions in your own life. And you're at an age in middle school where you're exploring all these new multiple opportunities. Your schedule has changed. The courses you're taking have changed. The people you're interacting with are changing. And right as you're making that transition to become a teenager and in your adolescent years, you want to feel that power of decision making, and then parents also want to feel like they can help you. And so
Yeah.
you have to try to strike a balance in your relationship, right?
Yeah.
You probably have to do that with teachers too, and that's one of my last questions is, if you had to point to a teacher who you think could help in a subject matter or just in your experience in middle school, who is maybe one of your favorites that you know has influenced you and how you approach school, who would it be, Sophia?
In middle school in general?
Yeah,
or
middle
like,
school.
Okay, probably Mrs. Dean.
Okay, and why?
I don't know. Mrs. Dean always had a way of having someone like choose their own decision and then like seeing another side of the decision, trying to make them like see both sides of
That's exactly
what's
what I was
happening.
gonna
Yeah,
say.
Mrs. Dean is both one of our
Perspective.
favorites. Yeah,
She's
just
she
pointing
helps
out,
with the
getting you to
perspective.
think.
She gets you to have a different viewpoint
Yeah,
on things. She teaches you that you shouldn't look at something one-sided. You should
then
always
go
try to find out like other reasons for something.
Well, and that helps you to develop a rationale, right, in your own
Exactly.
belief system and your own values, as if you have to critically think about multiple perspectives.
Yeah, and she
and
always-
we would hope that
yeah.
that would come out of lots of classrooms, right, in a middle school. How about just favorite overall, like if you had to pick from the time you entered Indian Hill, because you've been around for a
there's
while.
two.
All right, let's hear.
Like my overall favorite
Yeah.
teachers, Mrs. Tice and Mrs. Dean are my favorites. Sorry if any
And
of the other teachers are
That's
watching.
okay. You spoke about Dean, but what about Tice? Why?
I don't know. She always just had this like light airiness to her. She's always been like enjoyable, I guess. And I guess that's also something that Mrs. Kester
So
also
the
has.
attitude is
Yeah.
something that's come across to you that,
Yeah.
that's been like infectious for you.
Yeah, and like Mrs. Tice, like I've met her daughter before. Her daughter's also really nice, and you can definitely see the Mrs. Tice and her daughter.
Okay.
It's,
Duncan,
yeah.
what do you think?
So this is like our entire school experience.
Sure.
Maybe Mrs. Booth, my second grade teacher.
Mrs. Tice was my second grade teacher. Dang, second grade teachers are so good.
And why Mrs. Booth? What comes to mind?
It was in first grade. I was kind of like I had trouble keeping focus, and I feel like Mrs. Booth, she just knew how to like get me to keep focus and feel incorporated with the stuff she was teaching.
The attention she paid to you really paid off in your mind, right? And obviously, you're remembering that, and it helped you to kind of get on track, the track you wanted to be with your relationship with her.
Yeah.
That's great to hear. And you may not know this, right? Your mom was one of the first moms I met in the district. Your dad's one of the first dads I met in the district. You're actually the second student that I ever met in this district, Sophia. And to watch you guys grow over the last 4 years has just been really incredible. So final question. You're kind of
Yeah.
poised for the future here, right? The rest of this year, what are you really looking forward to before the end of this school year? Like in your mind, if you had to pick something.
The Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz, it's coming up, and you're really excited about that.
Yeah.
It's going to be a pretty epic show.
Yeah.
I think coming out on top of my schoolwork and not letting my schoolwork drag me down into like a hole that I don't want to be in. Like say like I don't mean that in like a bad way. I just mean
Yeah.
like I don't want to procrastinate a lot and then have all this schoolwork that I have to do and then that be like, oh, I can't hang out with my friends. I have homework to do and then like
So
it
you're
just
trying to
makes
balance
me-
all the things
yeah.
you're involved with,
Balance,
so that
I
you,
guess, yeah.
that's a great thing, and I think that's a struggle for students all the time. They're especially involved in a lot of activities like you are.
Yeah.
So the best advice, right, is to reflect on it and give yourself a schedule and a routine that can help you keep that
Yeah,
balance.
and like even doing homework with friends has always been like as long as you stay focused and get the work done, then it just like helps
It
with the
feels so
balance
much
then
better.
because then you're still with your friends, so you still feel like you're having fun, but then you're also able to do your work and like get what needs to be done.
Well, I have to tell you, I feel so much better. I mean, this definitely smells like teen spirit to me today. And Duncan and Sophia, I truly appreciate you being on the EduHERO podcast. It was so
course.
great to hear from you both. Have a great day.
Thank you.
You too.